So, hello to anyone who might be seeing this. My name is Giovanni, and as an introduction to myself and maybe to this whole channel, I'm a Dane I was born in the US, but very shortly after I was taken to Denmark, and I lived there until I was like 9. But afterwards, I was in Spain till like last year, in 2024. And yeah, that's basically it. But now, since 2024, I'm now living in Denmark, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And also since last year, I've been traveling around a lot, especially here around Europe, and it has been pretty nice. So I will want to make this channel about basically, at least at the moment, showcasing what I've seen and so on, and hopefully to whoever sticks around, I hope you enjoy that. So right now, I've thought about this first video being centered around my first travel to Germany, actually, even though it's very close to Denmark. I've never been there before last year, but yeah, I was in Flensburg, which is very close to the Danish border. It wasn't my intention to actually be there, but due to, let's say, climatological reasons, I was pretty much just forced to be there for the night. And yeah, and then I was also in Hamburg, so that's what I want to showcase for at least this video. So, this photo here, this is from the Museumsburg in Flensburg, which is, it looks pretty much like Art Nouveau from what you can see, at least from the beginning of the 20th century. And I just like this door for it. It's pretty cool, especially with the bats here. That's pretty cool. I don't know really why it's black, but yeah. Then I went inside the museum itself, and it has like one section for taxidermy of animals in general, and then also a historical part, which is the one I was most interested in. But I will start here by the taxidermy part, which is here some birds, some different types of birds, like some falcons and an owl. And yeah, pretty cool. Some more birds. Apparently this fella isn't actually a penguin, but it really looks like a penguin, but apparently not. They're very known through the Faroe Islands, I know. They're very, very known there, but they're not penguins. But there's just some species of animals that just really, really look like another one, like these fellas. And I guess also these ones are neither penguins, because they're only found throughout the southern hemisphere. So yeah, now I know that. Here are some nests from different types of birds, and also like their eggs that they put in here. Also, like there's in German and also in Danish. So yeah, different types of nests here. Pretty cool. Like this one looks like a bee's nest almost, or a wasp nest, guess. More nests here. Here you can also see like some birds they use, like I know also some of them, for example, some types of penguins also use their poop in order to make a nest. And here it rather looks like they're using mud for it. Here's also some that use feathers. And yeah, it's pretty cool, I guess. Okay, so this is the historical part of the museum. There was a bunch of different types of interiors from either the Renaissance or maybe the Baroque era. so like the 17th century, around there, maybe before. But I just really like these types of interiors. They're all wooden made, and it's just really cool looking at the different types of decorations from them. Like here, also here, and here you can also see that at the windows there's also some art, and I really like that. Here's the door for it. I also really like these types of painted doors. They're really beautiful. Here's another interior. Here's also some tiles. These types of tile works, they came from when Spain was conquered by the Moors. They brought this type of art, and it's very known, especially in like Seville and that, but it's expanded throughout Europe in general. And yeah, it became very, very popular, especially like afterwards, porcelain and that came from the Chinese, especially like for royal families and families of higher status. They became very, very popular, and it's also because of that you can see in some castles and that in some of them there's a whole room just dedicated to like these exotic things, and in a lot of them there's porcelain that usually has some Chinese motive or similar. Not always, but I've seen a bunch of that, and but in regards to this room, I also just like this type of decoration for the blinds here. It's really cool. Here's a dollhouse, yeah, from 1900. I really like these. I also really like how in older times you used to, well, paint the walls and the ceilings and all that. I really like that. It's it's kind of bad that it's not really something you do anymore, and nowadays they're just normally white, and that's pretty much it. But I really like these sorts of decorations, even though in many of them, the way they did it, it was with lead, and you get lead poisoning, but still, I just really like these sorts of walls they used before, and also like the clothing from that era. It's also just cool. So here's some, well, folk clothing and folk painting in general, and I just also really like that. Here's also some paintings of the insides and how these sort of houses were lived in before. Yeah, just, well, the daily lives of these people. And yeah, here you can see a grandma making some clothes and all that. And here's just a scene from one of these types of rooms. They just have a sort of atmosphere to them that I personally just really like, and I just really like visiting them because they're kind of different. I just really like the sort of kind of cozy atmosphere you get from them. Yeah, and here's also another painting from these sorts of houses with all these sort of tiles. Here's a ceiling from these, well, older houses. And here you can see, of course, some religious scene, like from the Bible and all that. I also just really like these sorts of ceilings. They just are something else. I really like them, even though I've seen a lot from like the Bible and Jesus and all that. It can be a bit different. And here's for the horses. This is to like take the horse carriage on or something like that. No, well, it's rather a wedding present from the rural life. Yeah, but also related to the horses. I also just really like the way they're decorated. People didn't have a lot of things back then, But with the things they had, they really made a lot out of them, and it's just really beautiful, these sorts of arts they made with them. Really something else. Here's another photo from the insides of these sorts of houses. There were a bunch in this museum. I really like that personally. Yeah, here's a bit of that, and here's also some more scenes from these sorts of houses. Really nice. Here's also a cover. Yeah, from these times. Also, here's also like they made a bunch out of this. I really like the decorations out of them. Real beautiful. Here's a painting. Kind of weird painting, but I like it. It's kind of something else. Real something. Yeah. I like it. I don't really know what is this. It's again something, I guess. But yeah, don't sin, I guess. Here's an altar. I really like these. Well, there's a bunch of things I really like, but I really like these sort of medieval altars. They're also like wooden made out of wood, and you can really make a lot of out of wood. It's really, really beautiful, and yeah, it really is really something else. Here's a bunch of these sort of fountains, I guess. I've seen a lot, especially out of this lion here. I've seen a lot of these sorts of fountains with the lions, especially. Here's also a drinking horn. Yeah, really cool. Here's a staircase with a lion. I've seen a lot of coats of arms, statues, well, all kinds of arts, with especially the most used animal. From my feelings, it's definitely the lion, because the lion was associated with the higher classes, with the nobility and all that. It was sort of a royal symbol, so it was really, really used for a lot related to that, and also just for the higher classes and all that. So that's kind of why the lion is used a lot. But I guess it's also just really liked. I mean, a lion is cool. It is very, very astonishing. And here's also an interior, I think rather from the 18th century. I guess also from people with quite a lot of resources. And also just, again, the walls. They're really, really nice. They really are. And here's also a stove. These sorts of tile stoves, they were also a symbol in prior times of like higher classes. They really had these sorts of stoves to like symbolize that, because you didn't really talk specifically about your wealth. You rather showed it, and then you can really see, about all these sorts of people with money and all that, with these sorts of things. And yeah, I guess the people who once owned this house, or the interior of this house, it's really cool. I just really like the walls. Just something else. Yeah, again, they're just really cool. Here's a piano, or a clavichord, or a harpsichord from prior times. Also just really beautiful. They really made a lot out of the things they had back then. They really painted them beautiful and such. I really like that. And here's an interior from the kitchen, or rather where you ate. Kitchen, or kind of a living room, but not really. Yeah, from back then. Here's porcelain. Porcelain was also a thing that before they decoded how this sort of porcelain was actually made. it was something really, really valued among higher classes of people, especially like royalty and such. That's why you can find like whole rooms, they almost, and a lot of porcelain from the Chinese, because they had basically a monopoly amongst porcelain. They were the only ones who knew how to make it, or like in this very, very well, in this quality, so to say. And for a long time, people just outside of China didn't really know how it was made until in like the 17 something, they decoded it. But until then, it was only the Chinese had a monopoly on it, and basically everyone wanted it. So it was a huge, huge export. And yeah, that's why you can just see it amongst many, many places, because it was just a huge thing back then. But it's really beautiful how they made a lot also out of this, out of porcelain. Like, I really like the figures and such they made out of it. Like, here's a scene of a peasant milking a cow. Really beautiful. And yeah, here's the backside. Then we have a painting of, I think, yeah, it's some royal man, maybe a king of in the past. And here you have also some arms, because some coats of arms. And the swan is also used a lot within, especially like here up north. It's also used a lot, especially with the crown in its neck, also for symbolizing a lot of the nobility and such. It's used a lot, especially in like Denmark, I know, and such. And here's Holstein Schleswig was prior, in prior times, its own sort of kingdom, separated from the Danish state. So it had a bit of its own sort of privileges and such, and it was just kind of independent, but still kind of tied to the Danish kingdom. But yeah, here's a royal portrait. Really cool with all the gold and such. Here's sort of the museum itself with these owls. I just really like these. I really like Art Nouveau in general. I really like these sorts of forms and shapes. Never really seen before. That was really, really, really something creative they made out of it, and also with ties to the past, to like the mythologies of these places and such, because it tied also around when a lot of the countries, or rather the ideas of these countries, were began to be made, and so they were searching for their historical past and such. And you can see that through the arts and the architecture of that time. So I just really like Art Nouveau. I think it's either my favorite art style or one of my favorite art styles. Really beautiful. Yeah, here's from the museum itself, coats of arms of the Kingdom of Denmark. Yeah. Here's this. And here's the Easter Loon, or the Easter Lion. This was, well, for a grave in regards to the, well, in 1864 there was a war between Prussia and Denmark that really, really harmed Denmark's pride and all that. And it lost the region of Schleswig-Holstein. But after World War One, it regained the northern part of Schleswig. And yeah, but here's the Easter lion in order to commemorate a bit of these soldiers who lost their lives during that war. And yeah, it has been here since 2011, because it has traveled quite a bit in between different cities and such, but now it is in Flensburg. Here's the organ from the casino, well, from a church in Flensburg. I really just like these sorts of old organs. They just really made a lot out of them, and the sounds, the tunes they make is really something else. They really are. It's really something astonishing to witness, really beautiful. And I just really like how they decorated these very, very huge organs. Really, really something. Here's some coats of arms from different places, maybe families, because, well, the history of coats of arms was that they were originally tied to royal families, so they've still been used for royal families and all that, but later on, cities, towns just also really liked how the coats of arms are, because yeah, they're really, really cool, and that's how they got used also for cities, towns, and such in Europe. And yeah, here it is. I don't think it's all related to some cities. I do know, for example, this one right here, it's referred to one of the Saxonies, where Bremen is. I don't, Lower Saxony maybe. I don't know, but not all of these are actually coats of arms, I think. But yeah, here's the outside. It was in February, and so it kind of looks a bit gray, quite a lot gray, because it was in February I went there. So yeah, it's because of that. So here is from when I went to Hamburg for the first time, also in February. I did want, it was my idea to come to Hamburg actually. Flensburg it was not, it was because it was snowing, so there was problems with the trains and all that, and I just decided to be that night in Flensburg because it wasn't that expensive actually, because I got fucked over because, well, the snow and all that. But yeah, at least I got to explore a bit of Flensburg, even though it's not really a very big town. But I did plan for coming to Hamburg, and so this is just from like a little commercial gallery with these sculptures of animals. Kind of cool. Yeah, just sculptures of animals. Really beautiful as well. Really nice. Here's the central train station in Hamburg. There's also some like historical things here. Well, it's historical related. Yeah, that's pretty much it for it. Then I went around Hamburg. It was also gray around Hamburg because again it was in February, but I went there again in October. Well, where it was at least sunny, but that's for after. So right now you just have to bear with the grayness around Hamburg in February. Here's the church as well. I don't remember exactly its name, or the cathedral, but I really like this this house here, this building right here. It was also a Sunday in Germany, I found out by experience. Yeah, it becomes kind of dead on Sundays, kind of unfortunately, because I did go to Flensburg again during a Sunday, and it was almost completely dead. Like the only things that was kind of alive were a mini market, a bakery, a kebab store, and the museums, and that was pretty much it. So Sundays in Germany are just kind of boring because basically everything is dead. Here's a parliament in Hamburg. Definitely the parliament is my favorite place in Hamburg. I'm not a huge fan of Hamburg in general because a lot of it has just been lost with World War II and that, which is a common theme I've seen a bit in Germany in general. unfortunately. But at least the parliament is here, and I can say by my experience, old town halls and these sorts of parliaments, they are just magnificent in Germany. All these sorts of old town halls, and well, yeah, there are just really something else. I just love them because I've seen quite a bit of them in many places, well, in multiple places in Germany, and they're just really beautiful. In October, I went inside, so I cannot show the insides of it just yet. But I also just really like this was like bronze before, but due to I think cold, they become this sort of turquoise color. I really like it. It was a passage of time, and yeah, and here's the beautiful parliament. Here's the entrance of the parliament. I went inside of parliament, and of course there's lions here. Here's just a bit of the entrance here. I also just like these sort of rather grotesques where you can, I just like spotting different types of animals they usually put here, like for example this owl, this squirrel, this bird here, really beautiful. I just really like these sort of motifs, especially when I can spot like different animals and creatures there. They're really something. And here's the not garden, but kind of, because there's no really greenery there. But yeah, out there, and yeah, kind of gray, and specifically during that time. But yeah, it's still just really beautiful. Here's the San Nikolai church that received quite a lot of bombing, and for some reason they decided to keep it being as it was during the bombing. It kind of is a weird decision. I haven't seen that. I mean, basically all of the places that have been bombed before, they've been at least tried to be reconstructed or have been reconstructed in most cases now. But kind of is weird that they decided not to go to that path with this church. And it is really quite sad because the only thing that really, really remains of the church nowadays is the tower. You can take an elevator to the top of the tower to see some of the sights of Hamburg. But it just really is sad that, yeah, I mean, the whole war and its consequences cannot be denied. It was just really sad to have all that lost, and for what? For what exactly? Nothing really. A lot has been lost, especially due to the Second World War, and it's just sad. And yeah, there was also a museum under the in the basement of what was this church, because it just really isn't there really much more. And I went to it, and it was basically, most of it was related to World War II, the bombings and all that, and it's just, well, it's kind of weird to think about that, all those things that happened. It's really just because there was also a sort of documentary inside where there was an elderly woman talking about her experiences when those bombings happened, and it really is hard to imagine all that horror. Like, what have you done? But anyways, here's the entrance to this, well, rather former church. At least I'm glad that these creatures, like the dragon and lion here, I just love these creatures. At least these have remained after World War II, so they can be loved. I love them. I love these creatures, my beloved. At least these are still there, but a lot has just been destroyed. Like, basically all the crystals and all that. And here's the other side of the church, of the former church. It has just pretty much vanished. It's really just sad. I went with the elevator upside, and yeah, here's some sights of Hamburg. Hamburg is just really not my favorite place in Germany because, again, a lot has just been lost. And yeah, there's just all these really modern stuff, but not so much the older stuff because, well, they've just been bombed to the ground and it's just kind of sad. But yeah, there's still the modern things, I guess, and at least from here, at least the parliament is still very much here. So at least it is here. I like the parliament is really cool. At least it is here, and here's also a gargoyle, a creature, my beloved. Yeah, here's another side of the church. Not a lot of it. Again, not a lot of it remains. And here is from the basement of the church. There was a little museum inside, not so big. And again, it was mostly about World War II and the whole clusterfuck that happened with all the bombings and that. Really horrifying shit all around from both sides. Really, yeah. But here's some of the glasswork that at least has been preserved. So yeah, I really like these sorts of glassworks. They're really, really beautiful. And at least these have remained. They're really also something else. Here's also with a coat of arms. Really beautiful. Here's a tabletop game centered around air raids from the Second World War because under the Nazi regime, basically everything was centered around the war, only about the war. It was a bit, I don't really know. Yeah. But yeah. Then I went to another church, and this one, I think it's called St. Michael's Church, but I'm not sure. It was also pretty cool. A Baroque church, it kind of seems like. And here's also one of these huge organs that are just really stunning and with really beautiful music they can make. And here's the altar with some Jesus. Love your Jesus. Here's another smaller organ. That's also pretty cool. And here I went to. It was a very small museum. It was just from an apartment, from a street. Well, an older apartment. I don't remember the name of the street, but it is a very older street with a bunch of brick buildings from back then. It was kind of cool. Here's some older things with a painting of the street and all that. Yeah, kind of how people lived back then. Yeah, here's the sofas and all that to visit. There's a kitchen. It was real small. Real small. But yeah, that was kind of how people from with lower classes lived. Like, that's also important because yeah, they were also just living. Here's the street. Yeah, it's pretty much this. And here's also the outside of the St. Michael's Church. Here's also St. Michael with the dragon. I really like seeing especially how they portray the dragon specifically because it's basically always a bit different. And it's just something I really like, seeing the creatures and how they portray them. Like here also with St. Michael and the dragon. And yeah. And here you can especially see it. But here see it rather with the demons. Yeah. And here And here's also Luther, Martin Luther, the father of the Reformation. Here's because always that there's a canal, you have to call the Venice of this place. And this is called specifically the Venice of, well, this place. It's just something they really tend to do. And I've seen it a lot. But I really like this building. Really cool. Hamburg was also a city-state in the past. I will go into that a bit later. Because it's kind of really portrayed within the parliament. And yeah, here's a door handle, really cool. Here's some neat things from the streets in Hamburg. And here's from Flensburg when I returned in, I think it was in September. At least it was sunny and a bit more, well, not so grey, at least then. Here's a unicorn. Here's from the the museum, rather the art museum, so to say, in Flensburg, because the other one was rather dedicated to like taxidermy, the nature and, well, the historical stuff. Here's rather the art stuff. And there was an exposition about the 1950s, so that was also kind of cool, like here, yeah, when everything was started to be rebuilt. And here was a story about her communicating with her family that was in Denmark and so on. So that's why she had a Danish sort of telephone from Jutland. So yeah, to communicate with her family there. Here's a really 1950s style. I really like from shows that like portray space and all that. You always see like this sort of kind of back in the days futuristic style, very cubic, really cubic like style and all that. It has really that 1950s charm to it. Here's also with the TV and all that, and you could smoke inside, whatever, who cares. Here's also some films from back then. Yeah. And here's to commemorate after the First World War, there was a referendum within the Schleswig-Holstein region about whether to be part of Germany or to be part of Denmark. And northern Schleswig became part of Denmark, and later all the rest became part of Germany. And because, yeah, there were more people voting for being part of Germany. So, yeah. Here's the Easter lion, or the Flensburger lion, as it says there. Here it is, and also with the whole history behind it. It was moved to many parts, many cities. It was taken to many. It traveled a lot. So yeah, but it is now back in due to Danish-German cooperation. Initiative. It has returned to Flensburg, where it was intended to be originally. So at least the beautiful lion has returned to Flensburg, and yeah, you can see it there. Here's a portrait of Venice. Of these sorts of, I've been to Venice. It's kind of cool. It's really cool, especially with the carnival and all that. There's just a lot of people there. But yeah, here's then the portrait of, well, a balcony in Venice. I think there's also a lot there in Venice. There's also these sorts of domes. Not domes, but like these kind of onion domes that you can really see the influence of like the Byzantine Empire and, well, rather later on also the Ottomans, because for a while they were basically the only ones trading with the Muslim world. So yeah, they got also quite a lot of influence from them, but I'll speak rather more about that when I eventually come into speaking about Venice specifically. So yeah. Here's a nature landscape, really, really beautiful. I especially really like the landscapes of Casper Friedrich, I think he's called. Really, really beautiful, really stunning art of the landscapes. They are really, really astonishing. I really like these sort of portraits of the landscapes from there. They can really be astonishing of the just this well the landscapes of nature. And yeah, here's something more impressionistic, very influenced from Claude Monet. You can see, well, you can really feel, well, see also the brush strokes. I kind of like that sort of texture. Also pretty cool. Here's also one as well. Rather, I think these are landscapes from maybe the Netherlands. Yeah, in spring, really cool. Here's a sofa, also from like I think the early 1900s. Also in this sort of Art Nouveau style. This sort of couch you always see in films when the protagonist or someone goes to the psychologist, but from my experience, you only get a normal chair and that's it, not these sorts of couches. So yeah. And here's the ceiling from, well, my favorite part of this museum was definitely the Paris room, which is this one exactly, which was made for an exhibition in Paris, because Paris was the rage, especially in the 1800s, and well, pretty much also nowadays, because yeah, it has been for a very, very long time related to all these sort of new thinking, new arts, new everything, very much related to that. And I just really like this room. Also, you can see parts of, because it was made in 1900, but in the 1800s, many people really began to idealize the life in the Middle Ages. And yeah, here you can see a knight here. If I can focus here. Here's a knight. And also some parts of, yeah, I just really like also the carvings made out of here. Like here in the stove, really beautiful. And you can also see through here, because people were beginning to know more about, well, heritage and all that, because a lot of these sort of archaeological excavations were taking part. People were beginning to know more about these sorts of, well, the heritage, and also about the mythology and all that. So it's just really cool how they blended that sort of, well, new realizations they made about their whole heritage and all that. Real cool as well. And here you can also see some dragons, like the creatures. They're nice. They're really nice. Here's some coat of arms of different sorts of. Well, most of them were part of the Hanseatic League, and it's also related to Hamburg. It is a huge part of the history of Hamburg, and it is also why it is a federal state within Germany up to this day. Because prior to that, it was a city state, and it had its own laws and all that. Because in a lot of northern German cities, a lot of the history had to be were related to the Hanseatic League, and many of them were city-states of themselves because they had a huge power within trading. So yeah, but here many of the coats of arms are from other, rather former Hanseatic League cities, for example, Bremen, Stralsund. Here's the coats of arms of Schleswig-Holstein. Here's Mecklenburg. Here's, well, what's Danzig, now Gdansk. And yeah, I don't recognize all of them, but I do recognize a bit of them. Or at least half of them, basically. Here's more. Here you can see more of the Paris room. It's just really beautiful with all the carvings, and I especially like here in the walls, what they made for the walls with the birds and all the decorations. Really beautiful. Here's again some knights, because yeah, again, they idealized quite a bit the life in the Middle Ages. And well, here you can quite see it. With the knights and all that, and the honor and whatnot. Here are some of the carvings. Really beautiful, really astonishing. Yeah, here's some more of the whole. Really, really beautiful. I really like this Paris room. Definitely my favorite part of the art museum within Flensburg. Really, really beautiful. Here's some postcards with mountains having their own personalities and faces. Yeah. And here's the outside of the art museum in Flensburg. Here it is. Here's within a church and still in Flensburg. I really like these paintings, medieval graffiti, I call them. Really beautiful. And they tell quite a bit. I really just like them. I like medieval graffiti. Really beautiful. Here's another creature. Yeah. Really nice. Really, really nice. Here's another organ. Another beautiful, huge organ. Here's an altar with some more medieval graffiti. Like, here's hell. Be careful, I'm not going to hell. Because creatures will come and eat you, and you will suffer forever, and you will be in Dante's Inferno within the 9 circles of hell, and be represented in one of these Renaissance hellscape paintings that I really like. But here's the altar, and yeah, and here's, well, more of these medieval graffitis. Like, here's a bear. Yeah, cool. Medieval graffiti. I like them. Here's more of that. Here's the organ again. There's some cool stuff. Some old half-timbered houses. They're very common throughout, especially the Germanic world. Also, you can see them a bit in France as well. They're very common throughout that part of the world, and they're really charming. You can also see they have their imperfections and stuff that has happened over time. I really like that. And they're made out of tree, and they're not all just... They have all their imperfections, and some of them lean more towards one side, one part of them, and so on, so to say. And yeah, and here's some kitty cats with the coats of arms of Schleswig-Holstein. Lovely cats. And here I was in Hamburg again. Here's some rather Art Nouveau advertising. I really like I've also seen postcards with these sorts of advertisings from back then. Really, really cool. I really like them. So yeah, cool to see. And here's the Parliament again. Now not so grey anymore. It was in October now, and it was a sunny day at least. So at least now you can see it a bit without all the grey. Really, really beautiful. Here's some photos of it. Really beautiful place. And I went inside of it. And here's the coat of arms of Hamburg, which was a city-state. Yeah, here it is. It's a gate. It's very common for big cities to like have their coats of arms be a gate. I've seen that a lot throughout many cities within Europe, like bigger cities. They tend to be a lot these sorts of gates. So yeah, it's very common. But here's also some statues of the ancestors and all that. And here's a clock, older clock, like it. So I went inside and upside. And here's some of the insides of the parliament in Hamburg. Here's the workers, the normal city life within Hamburg in the past. You can see here in the paintings, like here, basically trading and all that, more or less. Because again, a huge part of the history within many of the northern Germany is, well, trading, basically. They had a huge part in that with the Hanseatic League. And yeah, of course, brother in arms, whatever, sure. We're gonna get married, here's life. And yeah, basically life in Hamburg. Here's also the representation of Hamburg as a person, the personification of Hamburg. And yeah, cool. There's also a door, really beautiful. Here's the older town hall of Hamburg, but it ended up being too small for it. So I don't think it is anymore there. So unfortunately, no, it isn't anymore there. And well, due to it being too small, they had to make, well, this one, because it was just too small and they needed more. So up to making a new one, thank you. And here's some of the bureaucracy rooms or whatever, voters rooms, I don't know, representative rooms. There's a lot of rooms. Here's also some slices of painting that were actually, I think it was that they were too big, so they just had to cut up of them. Yeah, here's more of it. Then here they speak about political stuff, all that things that people love. Yeah, here's some other rooms, really beautiful, for the most powerful people in the States. Yeah, real beautiful. Here's a stove. They had also something very revolutionary for back then. It was these sort of stoves that had the heating throughout. It had like a central heating, so it heated up the whole place. And yeah, really cool. And here's one of the main rooms here with portraits of all the continents, of all the 7 continents. And yeah, of the peoples, of all that. Like here you can see of Oceania with a kangaroo and the indigenous people there. Here's also a very elaborate light. Yeah. Also, this leather is leather. It is original leather. And they had to do something very specific in order to keep it up being there. But it is leather, actually. Yeah. Let me see. There. Here's also some more of these lights. Very, very beautiful, with a tiger and some snakes and Hamburg gates. Here's India. Here's some mythology, a creature with representations of peoples around all the globe. I really like that, the textures and all that. And people also, as a tradition, they wore these sorts of guard ropes for doing their duties here in the parliament and all that. And these were heavy clothes, and yeah, they actually never washed them. But they were very heavy, and as a tradition, they used them for functions within the parliament. But I really don't think they use them anymore. But here you can see portraits of them, how they were used and what they did. Here's more of that beautiful ceiling art. That's really astonishing. Yeah, really beautiful. Here it is. There's something else. And here's also like from Antarctica, or rather, well, Northern America, like North America, Canada, Greenland. The indigenous people there fighting against a bear, a nice polar bear. Here's India. Here's, I think, China. I think here's China, and with a creature. I love you, creature. With a creature here. And yeah, really beautiful. And here's a sort of Renaissance painting or Baroque painting where it kind of gives you the impression that they're looking on you downwards, like from a balcony upside, that they're looking on you downwards. I kind of really like these sorts of paintings. They're cool. And here's some other city-states, like for example Venice. Here's Venice. And here's either, I don't know if really Rome or Athens, but here's also some portraits of other city-states, because Hamburg was a city-state in the past, very vinculated to the Hanseatic League and all that, and yeah, so they wanted to be. They wanted a whole room to be related to the other city-states. Like here, with Venice, and with Athens, and with Rome, and yeah. Like here, I don't really know which this one is specifically, but it has to be another city-state, but I don't really know which one. And I also really like the gates here. Here's more beautiful stuff within the parliament. The stove, they really made something out of it. Here's the people, well, the representatives within the parliament with these traditional attires. And yeah, they drank also wine and all that with these clothes on, and they never washed them, and they were also really heavy. But kind of cool. Looking at the portraits with the people here with them on and all that. And here's this guy, he adopted from an orphanage a bunch of boys to be carpenters. He gave them an education to be carpenters, and for this room it is kind of honoring that because the carvings here, they are from these boys that he gave an education to, so they could actually make something out of life. And yeah, here's the carpeting. I just really like the wooden arts. Like, you can make really a lot out of it. It is really beautiful. I really like these. There's a lot of examples of some really beautiful wooden arts. And of course, this room is definitely an example of it. Like here, with the very beautiful doors, with the chairs, yeah, very beautiful. And here's some more people who have been within the parliament here in Hamburg. Yeah, here's also some carvings, and here. The parliament had a fire, and this is actually a bomb right here that who knows if it actually still works. um, but it detonated. I think maybe this was from the Second World War, where Hamburg, of course, got bombed to the ground, because it is a major, I think it is the second largest German city, so of course they were the main targets for these sorts of bombing campaigns, that, yeah, all on fire. I cannot imagine how it was like directly afterwards, the Second World War, with all the ruin and all that. Oh, yeah, here's a portrait of the representatives doing their work within the parliament, and here's some beautiful wooden arts. There's also a clock. I love this clock. I think this clock was also made by these boys that became carpenters. It is something really beautiful. They're all textured. You can really make some really, really magnificent things out of wood, like this clock. Obviously, really, really beautiful with all the animals and nature in general. I love it. Really, really astonishing. Really beautiful work. I love it. This clock. I don't think, well, I think it actually is rather a compass, because it isn't a clock, but it is rather a compass, but still really, really beautiful. Some more rooms with this really, really beautiful stove. I love it because of this here, with the eagle and the dragons, my beloved. And here's, well, the personification of Hamburg. And yeah, and of course the stove. So yeah, more rooms with many of the representatives who have been here. And another room for them. And yeah, here's another, well, bureaucracy room. And here's also this, because basically everyone who was a kind of a city-state wanted to become the new, well, basically any place in Europe wanted to become the new Rome after the collapse of the Roman Empire, or the Western Roman Empire. And later they just kind of ignored that the eastern part kind of it still existed for quite a while. Yeah, just that. But yeah, basically everyone wanted to be the new Rome, so that's kind of why, for example, here you have this inscription from the, yeah, related to Hamburg being this new Roman, this new Rome or whatever. And yeah, here's another beautiful but bureaucracy room, you can say. More art within the parliament, also really beautiful. Here more. They really made out. And here's Justitia, and here is, again, the personification of Hamburg, and here's the coats of arms of Hamburg, with of course the lions. Really beautiful. They really just made, I really love these old German town halls, or, well, parliaments, I guess, because they really, really made something out of them, because many of them date from the times where the German state was just made, so it was also tying more to like making an identity of it all and all that. But yeah, it is really, really beautiful. Really just made a lot of it out of these town halls, and I definitely want to see more town halls in Germany, that's for sure. And here's definitely a very, very beautiful. I don't really remember what specifically this room is for. Maybe it's for, I don't remember, but it is really also definitely beautiful. And here you can also see, I've seen many of these ceilings, especially in like castles and that. Here's some paintings of the daily life. and Hamburg in the past, and definitely some beautiful, again, very beautiful doors. And here's I think Charlemagne wandering around, maybe. I don't really know. And here's also some coats of arms from different, mostly other former Hanseatic League town cities, whatever. Really beautiful. And a lot of it regarding Hamburg has to do, of course, with, again, the sea and trading. And here it represents that whole life that Hamburg has regarding trading and sea, basically, because it has a lot of ties to do with northern Germany in general. And yeah, really, really beautiful. And here's a bit of the outside, the outskirts of the parliament. Really beautiful. Here's also with a creature, a dragon, and all that. Really beautiful. Here it is. Here it is with the fountain, with different sorts of mythological creatures. Well, yeah, different sorts of mythological creatures and people and all that. They've also taken from a bit of the cold that happens to the bronze, but I kind of really like this effect. I really like this sort of turquoise color. It is really, really neat overall. Really neat color. And yeah, here it is. Here the courses with the creature. With my beloved creature, the dragon here. They're always different, but I love it. Here's the gates of Hamburg, the Parliament of Hamburg, with of course lions and all that. Here's some bit of the outside of the Parliament, with of course also some creatures right here. Here sustaining the sort of, not balcony, but kind of with a unicorn, a lion, a griffin, and a Taurus right here. Really beautiful. And here's also a post that has of course also taken, well, from the time passing, yeah, it has taken the effects of it. This really neat color that happened to bronze, and I also really like it here in the leaves. Like here's been sparsed around. I think it's just really cool. And my beloved, here's my beloved Hamburg Parliament. It's really just cool. And here it is from a bit away. Really cool. Now not so gray. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this time around. To whoever who's seen this, I hope you've enjoyed, and yeah, I may be doing more of these, and I just hope you've enjoyed it and all that, and I hope to see you again. Bye!